make a checklist of all your fears. Just do that. Make a checklist of every single fear that you could possibly have. And just literally start at the smallest one. Just literally chip away. Okay, I overcame that one. I overcame that one. I overcame that one. I overcame that one. And just keep getting better. It's like that compound effect that we talked about on multiple of our episodes. Like,
what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Mind Fluxed podcast. On this show, we talk about how to think about the success journey, and our guests, tools, concepts, and ideas are all a resource for you to use to maximize your results. We're going to be talking about overcoming fear, because every big change comes with fear. And if fear stops you from making that change, then you'll never hit the results that you want. Results only come from change, and change only comes from defeating that fear. So tune in, turn it up. And if you're watching on YouTube, hit subscribe. If you're listening on iTunes, please leave a review after the episode. My name is Tristan. I'm one of your hosts. We're produced by Benji Got Beats, and I'm joined by my co-host,
Josh Matthews.
Boom. And we are recording on Zoom today. Shout out to the quarantine. So, overcoming fear. This is something that we've had to do just time and time, where it feels like it's like beat out of us by now. But I think one of the first ways to start this is based on a quote. Comes from a book by Dr. David Kessler, but a man named Greg Braden applied it to this time that the world is living in. And no matter what time you're listening at this, we're currently in the middle of the quarantine. Everything's shut down, the world economy. It's April 2020. And he said that the world is in the 5 stages of grief, which immediately is going to tie us into this fear. So we want to kind of break down the 5 stages of grief first, so that way you guys understand what the world looks like, or if you can remember this time, what it looked like. And then also how you can tie it to anything you're probably going through right now in terms of stopping you. So Josh, what do you think the 5 stages of grief actually correlate with fear on all levels, not just with like this global pandemic?
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, first off, the 5 stages of grief, for those of people who don't know what it is, it's, grief, denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. So, when me and you like talked about this whole situation, we just first talked about, that first stage is like, what is it that's happening? Are you going through, things when it comes to your business and your personal life? What is it that, for one, kind of like starts that feeling, like just in that whole process? And I think it's just very important to kind of like identify what that is and kind of just see it for what it is, like face on and just like take it head on and like wrap your head around it. That next stage is also like denial, right? So you ever had an experience where it's like something's happened to you, like I said, whether it is in your business, and then suddenly you just like had this feeling of like, man, this can't be it. This situation can't be happening to me. Like you having all these thoughts in your head to, that you just can't really reason with at the moment. And then you go into the next stage of anger. You start to feel some resentment towards that. You start to feel that, just that negative feeling towards the whole situation, which can also be very paralyzing. Because like if you're in a state of anger, you're not worried about how to overcome it yet. You're not worried about what you're gonna do next to get it. You're kind of just like sitting there and in like a stuck mode and basically just procrastinating to figure out the problem and feeling sorry for yourself. Then that next stage is bargaining, figuring out, what is it that you have to do? What do you have to give up? What do you have to give and take in the situation to get to that next step? And then there's also like depression and acceptance. So we also talked about too that, they might not even go in that order. Everybody has their own way in terms of like, grieving, their own way on how they deal with fear, how they deal with circumstances that they're not too sure about. But I think it's just like up to you guys, the listeners, to, kind of identify and understand how you deal with things and understand your process and understand, your path on how you deal with certain situations that are uncertain, that kick in that emotional fear, which, takes us to that next step, kind of like what is fear, unless you have more to hop on about just that first.
Yeah, I mean, well, no, you said it really, really well. I think if you want to find your fear, you have to find what you're grieving. And it can be grieving anything, like you said, a situation in your business. It could be a relationship, the loss of a loved one, the loss of a job, the loss of an opportunity. Tony Robbins talks about anger and resentment being caused by loss. And anger is in one of these stages of griefs. And you might start off as angry and then go to denial. I can't believe they did this to me. And then bargain, well, what do I got to do to get it back? And then ultimately go through that maybe micro stage of depression or macro. I know, like myself and a lot of our listeners have, from time to time, when things seem like they're falling apart, fallen into what feels like a deep, unescapable depression, physically and mentally, where it feels like there's like nothing else you can do. And then all of a sudden you kind of snap out of it and you end up in one of these other stages. You get pissed off again, or you're like, I'm not about to feel this way. This isn't real. So I think that understanding, if you want to find your fear, you've got to find your grief. That positioning that is what's going to help you understand the fears that are stopping you from getting where you want to go. Because those five things, I'm sure every single person listening right now can think of a time, if not right now, that they're feeling or have felt that way about something. I mean, we've been pissed off plenty of times. We've been like, I cannot believe this just happened to us, like scratching our foreheads, like rubbing the eyebrows
Mm-hmm.
after a long night at the computer. We've bargained our way in and out of so many things just to try to survive. And if you're in business and you're a startup, or if as a creator, as a doer, as somebody who wants more, you're going to end up in this stage a lot. Grief is not something that has to be seen as this miserable, woe is me state. You will constantly be grieving experiences your whole life, and they will be what takes us into these fears.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, definitely. Which, takes us into like, what is fear? Which I think, there's a lot of definitions for a lot of different people. A lot of people fear a lot of different things. Because like some things that I fear, there's some things that probably you don't fear at all, or the same situation to the next person. They all come in like different facets. And one topic I'm excited to talk about, or one topic I'm just to bring up, basically, is that from one, like fear comes from the unknown, and it's something that cultivates. We talked about it the other day. It's something that cultivates in your imagination, like,
Mm.
because honestly most of the time fear isn't real. It's something that you've depicted in your mind, something you've created in your mind, which you're using that powerful faculty of imagination, but you're using it in the wrong way that kind of hinders you. But it's something that you create in your mind, and you come up with the end circumstances, rather than just seeing it for what it actually is.
Yeah.
Which is like super powerful, but it's like it also that can like hold a lot of people back.
Yeah, I mean, because fear, like you're not born with it. Like my 2-year-old son, we were doing a workout, jumping off the porch, and for me, it's like there was like a 3-foot drop, which is taller than him, and then I had to jump out, and here he is as a 2-year-old just going to jump off of it, no fear, right? We're not born with this. We don't understand fear. We learn it, right? It's constructed. And I like the way that you put it too. It comes from your imagination, because we sit there and think of what's the worst that can happen, and it becomes
Mm-hmm.
this like game. Like people go hiking. Imagine if I fell off this right now.
Yep.
Or like, I mean, I'm not gonna call myself crazy, but I can't be the only person who's ever been driving down the highway and be like, man, it'd be crazy if I just got in an accident right now.
Yeah.
Because of like movies like Final Destination, right? So your fear can be something that you construct. It can be inputted based on the things that you watch, based on the things that you read, you digest, based on your experiences in life. Like that's where it comes from. And we can see the effects of fear in all kinds of places. Like it stops people from making moves in business. It stops people from creating relationships. It's socially, it's an issue, right? Between white police and black citizens, there's still an issue. Why? Because there's fear on both sides,
Mm-hmm.
right? And we've talked about this, with our partnership and everything. Like fear is at the root of all lack of progress. Somebody is scared to do something, to move somewhere. But you got to remember that it doesn't exist. Like it's made up. You're
Yeah,
making it up.
exactly. It's something that I think you just like eventually just like figure out like how to overcome. So like I think about I'm like having this thought right now, like, when it comes to like business stuff, there's not really much I can think of that I fear in terms of like there's not much that I like fear because I'm always, if we talk about the imagination part, like I'm always thinking of the best possible situation, never thinking about the most negative situation that can happen.
Mhm.
But for a lot of people, even people that are a lot of our listeners that are looking to get to that next level, they're stuck in that mode of thinking, especially if it comes to business or just excelling in their career, they always just like think of like the worst situation. And on the other hand, so like for me, I say I'm not really scared of anything when it comes to like business per se. At least I haven't found anything yet because I'm always like looking at the positive. I'm scared of like skydiving. That's something totally different in my mind that I've thought about, that I've created a bunch of different situations that could happen. Which I'm I'm saying I'm scared to go skydiving because I'm scared I'm gonna get a heart attack. I'm gonna just put that out there on record. And I gotta tell this story because it's crazy because you mentioned the show the other day, but the same show, the Will Smith has a Facebook show where he overcomes his fear. So I was watching that like back when it like came out less than a year ago or something like that. And what's crazy is his father-in-law got a heart attack in midair, which kind of fueled that fear.
Yeah, it like
Um,
validated your fear.
exactly, exactly. Like I said, it comes in all different types of facets. What's like one crazy thing like you're scared of?
So I already went skydiving, so I jumped a couple times, and like I almost the third time was not good. So it was scary. I mean, I like to try foods. I like to travel. I've been all across the world. Like I remember when I am in a state of like like I guess you could say like a depression or worry, I almost always end up doing something spontaneous that would normally scare me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like for example in 2018 when we graduated, I made the decision like a week and a half, 2 weeks before that I was going to go to Europe with my backpack, and I just did for like 10 days. And but I was also in this crazy not good state. Like I'm smiling about it now, but if I were to describe everything going on, it was not a good time. So I spontaneously did something. I was like, well, it can't be that bad, right? It got to be better than this. It's got to be better
Mm-hmm.
than this. For me, I mean, when it comes to like the little stuff, I grew up like swimming in ponds, and when you catch snakes, or you catch a fish, you end up with a snake on the end, like stuff like that, weird country stuff. So like I'm not scared of a bunch of situations like that. Um, for me, it's more of like serious stuff. Like I want to be successful. I don't want to repeat the wrongs of my past. I don't want to repeat the mistakes my parents unknowingly made. I don't want to repeat the financial lifestyle that inhibits the people in my life right now. Like for me, all my fears are what's it going to look like when I'm 50, 60, 70 years old. And that's like a driving force. Like fear is a great driving force. It helps like moms lift cars that are trying to save their baby. And like if the fear is greater for someone else or the people around you than your own self, like than your own survival, then it's something that's going to fuel you. And for me, I'm honestly kind of fueled by that fear, and I know it won't last forever. So that's what's hard for me to see, like the abundance that's possible, the all of the good things, because I'm thinking about what if the people go through the same things I went through, or went through the same, unhappiness, because everybody wants better for the people around them. And me not being able to provide that is the thing that scares the shit out of me the most, honestly.
Yeah. So for you, how do you know? How does someone know if they are feeling fear? Like, how does someone know that fear is like it's there? Because I feel like at this point, I can kind of like identify pretty quickly like what it feels like for me to be scared. Like, how does someone identify it?
Yeah. For me, like I said, I move in fear. Some people don't, right? Like you won't go skydiving. Well, I like will, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that the thing is understanding that fear is completely inhibiting, right? So it stops all action or thought. Like it stops thinking. and you're either paralyzed in motion or paralyzed out of motion. And the way I like to think about that is like a deer in the headlights, frozen, right? But flight or flight response, like you hear gunshots in the distance, you take off, whatever that might be, right? Like you're not thinking. So fear is that it can be that moment where you have a sudden response, you're not thinking, you jump when somebody hears a loud noise, or where you completely freeze up and you start to overanalyze, overthink. You're at that little moment like, oh, I'm going to go talk to that person, and then you freeze. What if I don't have anything to say? What if they're busy? Oh, they look like they're grabbing a drink. It can be any situation. But fear, I think you're feeling when you stop taking action or you stop thinking. Something, you're fearing something. And that fear is coming from grief in the past, a bad experience that caused you to think that this one might not go over so well. You know? What do you
Yeah.
think?
Yeah. I mean, I agree with that. And the way that I think about it too is like, it's that feeling, like you said, it's that feeling that you feel that kind of like stops you. So say it if it is talking to a girl or talking to that guy or even riding the biggest roller coaster in a theme park. You know, that just like nervous feeling you have in your stomach, honestly through your whole body, but mainly just in your gut of like, oh my God, like this, like, I like you just can't fathom just doing that. But like now that I think back on a lot of things that maybe I've overcome my fears on. So like I used to I like roller coasters. I'll get on any roller coaster now. There's like a couple things I will not get on when I go to an amusement park. Or really just one, the drop zone. Probably the slingshot too. I don't know. But but I
Everybody
used
out there is like, me too, me too.
exactly. But I think back because I used to be, even if I did get on the highest roller coaster, it would be the very last thing I got on, like the very last thing before leaving the park, because I just like hesitated so much. But you know, now that's like I get on that first. That's the first thing I do when I get to an amusement park. But I think when I overcame that, or even if it is talking to someone or trying to make a certain connection, I think once you truly accept the outcome, whatever that may be, even if it is a negative that you're thinking about, or the positive, whatever, as long as once you accept the income before like the outcome before making that move, I think that's when people like overcome their fear and they go for it. Because like there's been plenty of times where I've been like nervous to do something or scared to do something, but then I just say, "Fuck it, here we go." Like, hey, you know that SpongeBob meme. All right, I'm gonna head out.
Yeah, I am
Uh,
it out.
here we go. That's the quote on it. Shit, here we go. Got to do it. But now that I think back on it, I think it's like really just like, you know, you identify with feeling the way you feel. Like if it just completely just paralyzes your whole body. Like I like the way you said, you know, it either fuels you or paralyzes you.
Mm-hmm.
So like that paralyzing feeling, that's when you know you need to do something.
Yep.
Because like most of the time too, I guarantee you things you've been scared of, they end up being like the best thing you could have ever done.
Mm-hmm.
Like think of how many people, for example, say in relationships that are married, there was probably that guy who was scared to talk to that girl, but it ended up being the best conversation. They ended up getting married and living happily ever after. Imagine being hindered by that fear so much that you never found your person.
Right. Imagine the sales call, the business call. I don't want to pick up on the phone right now. But then all of a sudden you actually get the client on the phone, have the perfect conversation, set up the meeting, and a $5,000 deal, your first $500 deal, right? For some people out there, it's a $500,000 deal 5 years down the line, right? Like it's just, that little moment of nervousness, that fear, it's a good thing. Like it's supposed to be there, right? Like we're
Mm-hmm.
survivalists by nature. But survivalists are not meant to be happy. They're meant to survive. They're not meant to thrive. They're meant to live. Like that's it. And I think the way you put it, like in business, for example, you're not really scared of anything in business because it's kind of like, what's the worst that we can go wrong? We fail? Like what? We lose some
Mm-hmm.
money. Okay, we'll make it back. We lose some sales, we'll make them back. Or they don't want to buy, or the product can't serve them. There's nothing to be scared of in business. So if for everybody out there is a creator and a doer, there's nothing to be scared of your business because you're already creating it to serve. But I like the way you said that you only think of the positive, all the good things that can come out of it, your imagination. But when it comes to skydiving, you're like, oh, nope, I could have a heart attack. I could not hit the ground, like whatever it might be. So again, survivalists are meant to survive, not to thrive, right? So they're meant to live. Well, then you have to decide, you kind of have to override our human brain with your emotional brain, with your spirit brain, with your like, I'm here to have an experience brain, and say, how do I want to live? Okay, body, you're designed to help me live. How do I want to live? And now you start to face the fears, no matter what cost, that's going to get you those things to live. Like most people, the most they use their imagination is imagining what could go wrong, what if, and all of the negative things that come with making a decision or taking action. What if you actually changed that and said, when this goes right, how will this work out? And you fuel your imagination that way. When this sale goes right, how will this work out? When this conversation goes great, because we're supposed to be talking right now, so I have to go talk to them, what will that connection build for you? That's how you should be using your imagination as something to create positive, a positive outcome, a positive future. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Yeah,
I
yeah,
think that's big.
exactly. And so I really like want to challenge, like, for those of you listening, like find something that you like fear and take it head on. Like attempt to take it head on. Like just do it. Just go after it. And it could be something small. Cause like even like sometimes, we talk about like you gotta be able to approach a situation and just like break little pieces off of it at a time. Just chip away one at a time. You're not going to overcome your biggest fear all at once. Like for me personally, like I feel like the more that we go, the more that we just chip away, the easier it becomes to overcome fears because we would have had enough overcoming under our belt that it just feels normal at this point. Like
Hmm.
like most of the time when we feel like, man, this is like something that's scary, now it's to the point we just like jump on it. Or if it is something that either one of us feels scared about, at least one of us will say, all right, I'm not scared of this, which will force the other one to go ahead and do it.
Yeah, it's good to have a good friend like that. Like
Yeah.
it's kind of like that saying when you were kids, like if your friends jumped off of a bridge, would you?
Yep.
Like, depends. Do we have a parachute? Is there water down there? Like, I'm gonna give you the sarcastic response because yeah, probably. I mean, they had to jump off for a good reason,
Right.
right? So like having those kinds of people in your life that push you, that's what that means. Like people who push you to face your fears, people who push you to accept the results either way, good or bad, and accept it to the point where you're willing to make that move. I like the way you said, like a chip off a piece at a time. It's like eating an elephant, one piece at a time, or a 10,000 piece puzzle. We had a puzzle on the table the other day we started putting together, and like when I first looked at it, I was stressed. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not a puzzle piecer together, whatever the words are. Like,
Yeah.
but then I noticed a pattern. There's only so many of these colors. Let me put those together. And all of a sudden I started getting the chunks together, the big pieces together. And I started literally like doing a fist pump when I would get like big pieces put together because I was getting excited.
Hmm.
And I was like, now I can actually see it coming together. That's what it's like. That's literally what business is like. That's literally what your real life is like. Your relationships, like you can't just like voila, I open the box, dump out the bag, and all the pieces just magically come together.
Hmm.
Like you're given tools, you're given a mind, you're given the ability to listen to this right now, which means you've got Google and YouTube, and you can learn anything. If you can learn from us, you can learn from anywhere because we're on all online platforms. So I think that that's huge. Like to understand, it's only going to come one piece at a time.
Yep.
And like when you face your fears, you'll know. That's when the sudden change happens. Like your exposure to entrepreneurship, my exposure to entrepreneurship, it was a change in our imagination. Suddenly it went from I don't want this all to happen. And then we meet people our age or we meet people with our interests who are successful, and we're like, instead of just focusing on what we don't want, all the fears we have in life, we're able to say, oh snap, all that's possible, plus I can put these fears to rest. And our imagination changed. Now we had to read the books to expand our imagination. Now we had to watch the videos, attend the seminars. And I think that that's a big thing. You listen to anybody's success story, there was always a day that everything changed. And almost always it was a day they faced a fear, or they reasoned with a fear, or they understood that it was all in their own head. and they could go make this happen for themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I totally agree. And just,
Huge.
I have an epiphany. Like the biggest thing, like I think that when it comes to like fear, it's just like really, I just fear that I'm gonna miss out if I don't like jump on certain things or do certain things. You get to the point where you realize that for one, if another person can do it, like you probably can too. Like there's like it's understandable. It's understandable to be afraid of something if it's for just completely never been done before. Completely is just like just way out there, and even then, it's still possible. Like it just takes like that one person being brave enough to like go for it. But like think about it that way. Like you don't want to miss out on the good things in life. Like another example, like me, I have a thing when it comes to food, and I don't think it's something that I like. It's just something that I just never grew up like. I was never introduced to a bunch of different foods like growing up, so I just have my straight and narrow path on like what I like, and that's what it is.
Straight and narrow.
But I'm coming to find out as I get older, like I really want to get out of that. I really want to, and it's a process. I'm not the type of person that's just about to eat crazy shit off the bat, but it's kind of like that fear of missing out on, relating to someone about a certain dish or relating this or missing out even on a connection just because didn't want to go to a certain restaurant or something just because of like what they serve. Like, and that goes with anything. Like I did mention skydiving, but that is something I know I'm eventually going to do. It may not be in the next year. It may be 20 years from now. I don't know, but definitely like want to experience it because like the worst thing that you want to do, well, the worst thing that can happen is like I feel like is just getting to the end of your life and realizing that you could have did a lot. You could have did a lot more, and you could have
Yeah.
experienced a lot more, and you let your mind overcome, you know, overcome uh overcome you and prohibited you from having certain experiences that you could have that could have propelled your life in certain directions and led you into a path that you were meant to follow.
Yeah. I mean, the survivalist part of you is going to do its job. So you need to do your job to fill your life with as much experience and joy that you can, because the survivalist part's going to take care of itself. Like you're going to be fine. And I
Mm-hmm.
think like so many people, they're scared to move away from home for a job. They're scared to, try the school that it takes, whether it be a course privately or whether it actually be through a university, because they might fail. They're scared of those things. And like you brought up Will Smith earlier, he has I don't know if it's his quote or if he quoted somebody else, but I remember it in a video where he said, the man who says he can and the man who says he can't are both probably right.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a very simple statement that I've always kind of kept with me and like understood that, whatever we put our mind to, we can do. And of course that sounds cliche, but you can think about all of the times you have learned something and then succeeded. It's the exact same thing. You just lack the skills or the connections. And those experiences are going to be what pushes you to not be scared of acquiring the skills and not be scared of acquiring the connections and the people. So to transition into this last thing, Josh, let's talk about overcoming fear. We've talked about grief and how grief ties into fear because your fear is caused by grieving something in your past. And we've talked about fear now in so many different ways to where I think a lot of people have a pretty clear grasp on it. But what are some like simple steps or some things that people can do immediately to start to eradicate the fear in their life and start to like see it for what it really is, that made up constructed thing that needs thrown away? How can people start to overcome fear?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing is like you have to focus on the best situation that could happen. Say if it is a business, don't think about, oh, what if I lose this money? What if, my family disowns me? What if, whatever it may be? Think about, oh, what if I actually make $100 million from this idea? What if I do impact 100,000 people because I created a product that the world truly needed? What if I, you know, get all these accolades and people recognize me all around the world? Like you have to start focusing on the positive and not the negatives of situations. Cause like that's the thing that paralyzes people. It's the consistent thoughts of what negative could happen. Like you'll
Mhm.
never get anywhere in life if you're just continuously thinking about that.
Yep.
So like off the bat, like that's one huge thing that I think people can do, because like most of the time when I even want to have conversations with people, the first thing, even if I say like, okay, that's cool, start today, start tomorrow, then they come up with every situation like it's like right.
All the fears, all
They
the red lights, all the check engine lights in their car just going off in
exactly,
their
they're
head.
they're just like, oh well, I can't because of this, I can't because of this. Oh, but what if this happens? What, it's like, no, like think of the positive. Like you're not hurting yourself by think, you're only hurting yourself by thinking of the negative.
Exactly. Yeah, that constant repetition of what can, what can, what can. We do that. We like, even if one of us is talking negative, we will like, and you need to have that person in your life who's going to be constantly saying like, dude, cut it out. Like, think
Mm-hmm.
about what can happen, because if that other stuff is going to happen, it's going to happen and you're already prepared. So you don't need to think about preparing for it. What you need to do is prepare to win, prepare to succeed. So that way that's more likely to happen. I would say too that like Murphy's Law does not exist, and everybody's heard of Murphy's Law. It's anything that can go wrong will go wrong. That's not real in nature and science and spirit and life. It's not, because we have animals that adapt to anything, right? Like we talked about that on what was it? Adapt to survive, adapt to the present. We
Mm-hmm.
talked about how animals adapt to the next thing. A lot of animals did, birds and beaks and stuff. Where us, how we can adapt to certain situations, which means anything that can happen positively will happen for you to succeed. And you have got to position yourself to receive those things, and to actually catch on to those opportunities as they are there. It's not the Murphy's Law, anything that can happen, can go wrong, will go wrong. It's anything that can happen for things to go right will happen. It must happen. And so sometimes the world or the situation or the relationship is going to need a little bit of your help, your input. You can't just sit off the gas and be like, oh, God's got it, Murphy's Law's got it, whatever it is. You've got to show up to the plate. Like I saw a quote that said, God will prepare the food, but he won't cook the dinner. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to recognize those things in your life and not sit and say all the things that can't happen. And it's kind of like saying what you had just said, the constant repetition of those positive things. But you've got to get, again, another way of saying it, get that negativity out.
Mm-hmm.
What
Yeah.
else?
Um, I think when it comes to like fear, like things that people can do is just like I said earlier, like chip away, like start small, like start, make a checklist of all your fears. Just do that. Make a checklist of every single fear that you could possibly have, and just literally start at the smallest one. Just literally chip away. Okay, I overcame that one. I overcame that one. I overcame that one. I overcame that one, and just keep getting better. It's like that compound effect that we talked about on multiple of our episodes. Like you just have to create the habit of overcoming that fear, and eventually it will come. It just happened, because like for us now, it's like, there might be something that's scary, but we just like immediately make the decision, because we know once we make the decision, when it comes to whatever it is that kind of we feel like hesitant on, things will always work out. And the longer we fester on the decision that needs to be made, the the more it just won't happen at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So
and we
like,
get that gut feeling too.
exactly, exactly. It's
But
just,
so what?
yeah, you just got to keep going forward, because it's like we're more scared of missing out on the great things that can come from it.
Yeah, we're more scared we're missing out on what could happen than stopping and worrying about what could happen.
Mm-hmm.
Seeing it from the same sentence, but from a different place. Another thing that I think you can do, this is something simple, and you brought it up, and I actually did it today, is look at positive reviews only. Before you go shop somewhere, before you go eat somewhere, before you go to Amazon, look at positive reviews only. Try
Mm-hmm.
to find the products with the most positive reviews, and then just read through all the reviews, the changes that it made, the features that it made. That's what you want. You don't want to read about the person who got the accidentally broken product, or the person who got shipping was delayed 2 days. Oh, or like there was a wet floor sign that they didn't see or something like that, and they slipped when they came in. Terrible restaurant. Like, you got to understand, all human beings make mistakes. You are not perfect. If I were to write a review on the past 365 days of your life, how many of there would be negative? And would you want somebody to come do a review of your life and only look at the negative reviews to make that decision? Probably not. So you
Yeah.
need to look at the positive reviews. I love that idea. It's very simple, but it's like, that is so effective. I have committed to not even looking at 1 and 2 star reviews.
Yeah. And this is my, especially when it comes to, say, like programs or online programs or a certain person, I normally try to look at a lot of the positives that people say, because my first thought that comes to mind when I see a negative one, I'm like, okay, this person probably just did not do what needed to be done to get the certain result. They, like, you can clearly tell when someone types out, a caption or a review, whatever it may be, if they are just moving out of fear and they haven't decided that whatever that thing is going to work out for them.
Yep.
Like,
Especially
even
with programs. We bought a lot of programs. That's a really good way to use that.
exactly. And it's like, we seen one in this Facebook group the other day, and this person was just so mad about not getting certain information and whatnot. But I'm just like, you can't be mad at the program, the group. Like, regardless of the programs out there, it's still up to you to figure out how to overcome and get to your end goal.
Yep. Yep. And we've bought countless programs and been in there where people are always complaining. And we're like, do you not see the abundance of resources that are right here? Like, what is wrong with you? Like, why are you finding this flaw?
Mm-hmm.
We do that. And we're humans. We look for flaws. You need to find the flaw in what you need to do to make it happen, not what other people need to do to make it happen for you. If God will prepare the food and won't cook the dinner, what do you think other people are going to do?
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to give you the food or cook the dinner. You got to figure it out. And that's another thing. You got to get in control. Fear can be caused by a lack of control. Okay, so if there's a part of your life that is out of control, it is inconsistent, whether it be, I don't know, how often you party or how often you don't read or journal or do a detox tea or whatever thing is that you could do better, but you watch it piling up, you watch it bother you, and it causes you to feel that anger, that resentment towards yourself or towards others. You need to get in control. Put yourself in a safer place there. And that control is going to come from consistency. Consistency there, I said it right. Took me, slurred that one. But that control is going to come from consistency. So you need to pick a few places in your life that are constantly causing you that discomfort and that fear of what's going to happen, and you need to get in control with it. For a lot of people, it's their finances and their education. I am one of those people, right? It's constantly an up and down, constantly reinvesting, constantly having new expenses you just don't expect, that I'm learning about as having like a son, and having this business and having this show and everything that we do. I get it. So I've decided to take control. Josh and I read a lot of books on finance now. We're trying a lot of strategies. We're putting our money where our mouth is in a more educational or more way, and it's making me feel a lot better. I don't feel that fear because now I have a plan and I've gotten in control. That's
Yep.
one way.
Yep. And I think one big way is just like, in all, it's just like, you have, and it goes back to that thing I was saying, or even that we were saying, it's just like, think of like the positive outcome of the situation, and then just like completely let go. And this is one big thing, like, you have to completely let go of the outcome. Like, do not focus. And I've said this, over the past couple months, because it's something that I've just like come to like terms with. It's just like, you can only focus on the actions that you're like daily taking to overcome the fear or whatever it may be. But like, you have to just completely detach yourself from the outcome and just trust that it's going to work out.
Mm-hmm.
And just believe that it's going to work out. Like, have that faith that, you're going to overcome this fear that is paralyzing you from moving forward or stopping you from moving forward. Like, you
Yeah.
just have to completely let go and just accept it.
Yeah.
Accept whatever comes.
Like a future godlike presence, like a faith. every religion has one thing in common. There's a better place after you go, right? So you got to look at today and say, there's a better place than where I'm at today. And that might be an attachment to something bigger than yourself that you believe in. But either way, like Josh just said, you're at a future pace yourself. And
Mm-hmm.
that also helps you get uncertain information out of your life. The hearsay, the drama, the rumors, those stir up more fear. Like this pandemic we're in right now, right? I'm not like putting the parentheses around it because the pandemic's not real. I'm saying because all the conspiracies that are out there, all the Instagram conspiracies, like I just had to unfollow somebody I really liked following because I got tired of his crap, of
Mm-hmm.
all the different theories and fear mongering headlines and like tweets that are out there, and like much stirring around what is a legitimate problem, but all of the ways that it could be worse than what it is, all of the ways that more people are actually in a worse situation because the conspiracies, the higher ups in 1% of the world, and like all these like ideas, right? It's hearsay. We don't know which we don't know. So what can you do, right? If you are experiencing this right now, and tell me if this cuts out, Josh, because it said my internet was unstable. But if you're experiencing this right now, then there are certain things you can take control of. You can stay in your house. You can keep your things clean. You can keep yourself clean, and you can do the minimal leaving of the home. That's all
Mm-hmm.
you're asked to do. Take it from the experts. What does reading these headlines do for you? Why on Netflix is the top 10 shows all about, other than Tiger King, all about world ending situations like 2012 and biohazard and all that stuff? Guys, you've got to remove hearsay from your life and drama. You've got to, because it causes fear. And like the court does it. You can't use hearsay. What he said, she said. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. That's in Tiger King, by the way. If somebody says they're going to kill you, it doesn't matter. Well, you got to prove it in court.
Mm-hmm.
But it's real. That's the thing. You want to get fear out of your life, you need to remove uncertain information. And that's in Think and Grow Rich as well. When somebody is rambling on to you about all the things that they say they're going to do, or all the facts or all the reasons you should do something, you can sit around and ask them one question: how do you know? You got to
Yep.
do that. That's huge.
Yep. And the last point I want to bring up is that Will Smith, he had a quote, and he has a really good, just motivational thing all about fear on
Mm-hmm.
YouTube. Um, and he basically talks about on the other side of fear is just like, and this is the reason why he is taking head on the things that he feared, because he found out, especially when he went skydiving for the first time, right? He was so scared, like his stomach was twisting on the way up in the plane. Like he was just like so terrified to even do that. But then once he said he jumped, he just felt the most blissful feeling, and he felt the most freeing feeling. And that's when he realized on the other side of fear is when it is a great outcome, is the thing that you've been searching for, is a feeling that you've been craving, and that you've been truly wanting. It is the thing that you truly aspire to be on the other side. So just like keep that in mind, guys. Like when you're trying to identify your fears and you're trying to chip away at them, like whatever it is you fear is like that you're having that feeling for a reason. Like
Yeah.
that feeling is just telling you that it's the energy, it's God, it's whoever it may be, whoever you identify with. They are literally talking to you, telling you that you should do this. Like
Mm.
you should go and try to go for whatever it is that is stopping you, and try to see what's on the other side of that, because it's probably the biggest blessing that could ever occur in your life.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, Will Smith is we need to get everybody needs to tag Will Smith in every post you see from this episode. We need to get this man on here. The last thing I'll say about fear and overcoming fear before I move on to a question from one of our fans and listeners is that the last piece of this puzzle, it's going to take trust. Will Smith, he put his trust in the system that the shoot was going to do what it needed to do. The helicopter is going to need to do what it's due. The people, the training is going to need to do what it's due, right? But also the team, also your faith, also yourself. Most importantly, yourself. The last thing of fear, like if Josh and I are afraid of something of each other, then there's a lack of trust somewhere. If we are afraid of our business succeeding, whether it's he's afraid and I'm not, then there's something we're fearing or we're not trusting of either ourselves or each other, vice versa. And we've both felt that way over the time, that things that maybe we weren't going to be able to pull our own weight, or maybe that we wouldn't be as qualified, and we got through it because we put the trust in the system, we put the trust in each other, our team, we put the trust in our faith, and then we put the trust in ourselves that regardless of the variables, regardless of the people, we are going to work it out. And that's going to be the last piece that I would say to overcome fear. I mean, we just went through a lot.
Hmm.
Constant repetition of blessings, Murphy's Law, positive reviews only, getting in control, getting in with the faith, remove uncertain information, um, understanding that bliss is on the other side and you want that feeling, and then ultimately trusting it. I mean, I think you guys have a lot of action you can take right now to get fear out of your life. Do you have anything on that, Josh?
Nope.
All right, then we'll move on to a question from a fan. So, Mr. Nave, I think that's how you'd say, he tuned into a lot of our lives. He DM'd us and he said, when I try, and I'll pull up the DM too so I can get the exact info. But he said, when I try to work on my business, I have the biggest urge to do something else. Do you have tips for me? And the I'd already responded to him, and then Josh actually brought up a really, really, really good point as well. So I want to make sure we answer from both perspectives, because he got my answer. I want to make sure you guys get it too. And then he he missed out on Josh's answer, so I really want you to get to be able to share that too. But the first thing I brought up when it comes to the urge to do something else is something we heard from Naveen Jain at Thrive. Naveen's an Indian billionaire, and he said passion is not enough. You've got to be obsessed. You've got to cultivate an obsession with the thing that you are going to do, because an obsession, whether it be over a guy or a girl, will drive you to do things that you never thought were possible of yourself. So whatever mission you're on, whatever crusade you're on, whatever the work is or the business is, it needs to be something that can tie into an obsession that you have, or that can be cultivated into an obsession. And that was the first thing that I had said back. Josh, what would you say to answer that question?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing when it comes to trying to figure out how to just like get more, stay focused on the task at hand. It goes back to that thing of just like starting small and kind of like chipping away. So like say you do have a certain amount of things to get done. Like just set aside some focus time for yourself. Just it could even be 5 minutes to start out with. Because like 5 minutes is better than no minutes.
Mm,
So like 5 minutes to a focused work definitely goes a long way if you're not if on the other side you're not doing anything at all. So like I would like literally set up little time blocks and then reward yourself at the end of those time blocks because you got what you need to get done. And then just every day, it could be, start, okay, 30 minutes every single day for 2 weeks. I'm just about to focus on this one thing, not touch anything that or look at anything that distracts me. And I'm just going to focus on this for 2 weeks. And then you decide, okay, on the third week, all right, I'm about to work an hour a day on this one thing. And then just keep doing that over and over and over again. Because, like, from our experience, the biggest, it's not about how much you do in one day. It's not about how much you do in 2 weeks. It's about how consistent you are and how much you do over a course of a long period of time.
hmm
Like that's way more effective than someone that tries to just cram everything in one day. Because and I know a lot of people can relate. Think about it, say with school, because I did this. I was a bad student. I would try to learn everything. I would try to write my papers the week before they were due, or 2 days before they were due. I would try to, I would do my work right at the end of like a big test was about to come, instead of like taking just even 5 minutes, taking my own advice and taking 5 minutes every single day over a course of a semester, and then acing my my final. I just didn't do it, and I just tried to do everything in a short amount of time, and I had gained nothing from it. Literally forgot everything after walking out the classroom, taking whatever test I had to take.
Yeah.
Compared to the student that put the time in, they set aside time to move forward. They did what they needed to do, and they ended up being better off in the long run.
Yeah. That's really well put. I think when we were talking about it too, you said that it takes a ton of discipline and willpower to create focus.
Mm-hmm.
right? So that's why the obsession is so important, because it'll create the focus for you. At least it'll help. But that willpower and discipline, that's why it's got to start with that reward. Reward is always better than punishing yourself. So like you said, 10 minutes a day, then 20 minutes a day, then 30 minutes a day, then an hour a day. Then, doing it consistently, all of a sudden, you'll know if it's right for you. You'll know. And that's one of the other things is he messaged back and he said, okay, well, how can I get obsessed with working my ass off? And, we just kind of both agree on this. No one's going to create that for you. No matter if it's the discipline, the willpower that you're trying to force out, or the obsession. Josh and I will tell you, no one can create that for you. Like, if you're not obsessed, or if you're not at least willing to discipline yourself to focus, you're not working on the right thing. Sorry. It doesn't matter if somebody sold you their new Forex trading secrets and they're going to convince you can make millions of dollars, or if it's an email strategy, or how to edit videos, or how to do whatever it is. Like, if you aren't able to take at least one of those steps, you're in the wrong thing. And sometimes it sucks, but you got to accept it.
Mm-hmm.
You got anything else?
No. I would just take those action steps, and just like, it's a slow process. Like, when I started, which is 6 years as of this year, actually, as in a couple months, when I first read, Rich Dad Poor Dad. It's almost 6 years since I read that book. 6 years ago, definitely, I wasn't as disciplined as I am now. It took literally just keep trying every single day to get more and more focused. And I'm still not where I want to be when it comes to that. Like, I know I can go way harder, but it's just showing up every single day until you get there. It doesn't matter how long it takes. What if you say F the time it takes? Like, just get there.
Yeah, I agree. Guys, this is Overcome Fear Now. So we're extremely proud of everything went into to put it together. So if you got value from this, go ahead and subscribe on YouTube and leave a review on iTunes. That's how we're going to get this to more people. If you have questions yourself, you can DM us at Mindfluxed, MINDFLUXED, on any platform. You just send us a quick DMs, ask your questions. Weekly, we're going to start putting that stuff out there so we can answer more questions, because we actually end up getting a lot of them when we create the space. So that's where you can find us on social. But we really ask that you help us grow this by subscribing or by leaving a review. You can find our producer at Benji Got Beats, and I'm one of your hosts. You can find me at Tristan Is Better on Instagram. Where can they find you, Josh?
New handle alert.
New handle.
Josh C. Matthews.
That's awesome. At Josh C. Matthews. I'm sure people will be able to actually call you the right name now.
Yep.
Awesome, guys. Again, this is Overcome Fear Now. We'll see you guys next week.
Peace.